I have always believed that code is the purest form of honesty. A machine will never lie to you. It will never look you in the eye, brush a stray lock of hair behind your ear, and tell you it loves you while simultaneously calculating how to strip you of everything you have painstakingly built. A machine executes the logic you provide it. It follows the syntax. It respects the architecture. Nothing more, nothing less. My husband Marcus, unfortunately, did not operate on such binary principles. He operated in a murky, insidious gray area of deceit, manipulation, and profound arrogance. He thought because my world was defined by monitors, algorithms, and server racks, that I was blind to the physical world around me. He mistook my quiet focus for naivety. He mistook my introversion for stupidity. I am a 33-year-old senior software architect. I specialize in home automation, neural network integration, and deeply complex IoT security infrastructures for ultra-high net worth clients. 2 years ago, when Marcus and I decided to build our forever home in the affluent, quiet suburbs just outside the city, I didn't just hire a contractor to install some off-the-shelf smart bulbs and a couple of Wi-Fi cameras. I built the home's operating system entirely from scratch. I called the system Argus. Argus wasn't just a smart home. It was a breathing, hyper-aware ecosystem. The house was a 4,000 square foot marvel of modern architecture, featuring sweeping floor-to-ceiling glass, polished concrete floors, and stark, minimalist geometry. But the true beauty was invisible, buried behind the drywall and beneath the floorboards. I had wired over 2 miles of fiber optic cable through the framing. I installed military-grade biometric scanners on every exterior threshold. The HVAC, the plumbing, the motorized privacy shades, the lighting, the audio arrays, and the security cameras were all routed through a localized, heavily encrypted server rack I built in a climate-controlled room in the basement. Marcus loved the house, but he never understood it. To him, Argus was just a fancy toy that let him turn on the fireplace with his iPhone or show off to his obnoxious friends by making the kitchen lights change colors. He didn't know that I had written every single line of the 4 million lines of code that governed the property. He didn't know that Argus ran on a proprietary, air-gapped network that I could access via a heavily encrypted VPN tunnel from anywhere in the world. And he certainly didn't know that every spoken word in the common areas, every keystroke on the shared network, and every footstep on the pressure-sensitive entry mats was logged, encrypted, and stored on my personal cloud server. Marcus was the vice president of acquisitions at a massive, cutthroat corporate logistics firm. He was devastatingly handsome, charming to a fault, and possessed the kind of effortless charisma that made people trust him instantly. It was the same charisma that had completely blinded me when we met 4 years ago. He also came from terrifyingly strict, old money wealth. His parents, Richard and Eleanor, were the kind of aristocratic, country club elites who viewed my new money, tech background with thinly veiled disdain. To them, I was a functional asset, a highly paid laborer who had managed to claw her way into a tax bracket I didn't culturally belong in. Marcus's boss, the CEO of the logistics firm, was a man named Vance. Vance was a ruthless, terrifyingly pragmatic titan of industry who valued reputation and public image above all else. Marcus worshipped Vance and desperately sought his approval, aiming for a partnership track that required a flawless personal and professional facade. The red flags regarding Marcus's fidelity didn't appear as massive, glaring banners. They manifested as microscopic anomalies in our daily data. A sudden change in his phone's passcode. Unexplained, last-minute client dinners that kept him out until 2 a.m. A sudden, intense focus on his physical appearance. But the most damning data point was the financial anomaly. I had built a subtle web scraper to aggregate our joint finances into a daily dashboard. 3 months ago, I noticed microscopic, seemingly random withdrawals. $200 here, $400 there. Always in cash, always disguised as mundane expenses. I didn't confront him. Software engineers don't scream and throw plates when they find a bug. They isolate the environment, write a diagnostic script, and observe the failure in real time to understand its root cause. I needed an isolated environment. I told Marcus I had been selected to give a keynote presentation at a major cybersecurity summit in London. It would require me to be out of the country for 6 days. I packed my bags, let him kiss my cheek at the door, and drove my Tesla toward the international airport. I didn't go to London. I drove 20 miles to a high-end Marriott in the neighboring county, checked into a corner suite under my maiden name, and unpacked my real luggage. 2 ultra-wide monitors, a high-performance custom-built laptop, a mechanical keyboard, and a massive thermos of black coffee. I connected to the hotel's fiber line, established my secure VPN tunnel back to Argus, and transformed the hotel desk into a digital command center. Then I waited. The first 2 days were agonizingly quiet. I watched Marcus go to work, come home, eat takeout, and watch sports. I began to second-guess my own paranoia. Perhaps the late nights really were just demanding clients. Perhaps the cash withdrawals were for a surprise anniversary gift. My logical brain fought against my emotional desperation. But on the evening of the third day, at precisely 8:14 p.m., my primary monitor flashed red. A silent notification popped up on my screen. Alert, unrecognized biometric signature, AT Foyer entrance. Override engaged via master device, Marcus phone. My heart seized in my chest, a cold, heavy stone dropping into my stomach. I took a deep, shuddering breath and clicked my mouse. I pulled up the high-definition, night vision-capable feed from the foyer camera. The heavy, custom-milled oak front door swung open. Marcus stepped in, laughing softly. He wasn't alone. Trailing behind him, her hand draped casually over his shoulder, was a woman who looked to be in her mid-20s. She had long, perfectly curled blonde hair, immaculate makeup, and was wearing a designer trench coat over a cocktail dress. She possessed the kind of effortless, Instagram-filtered beauty that made my chest ache with a sudden, sharp inadequacy. I unmuted the audio feed. "Oh my God, Marcus," the woman breathed, her voice echoing in the acoustically perfect foyer. She spun around, taking in the floating glass staircase and the massive modern art pieces I had curated. "This place it's insane. It's like a museum." Marcus smirked, shrugging out of his tailored suit jacket and tossing it carelessly over the back of a bespoke mid-century armchair. "I told you I wasn't exaggerating, Chloe. Welcome to the fortress." Chloe practically glided into the massive, open-concept living room, her heels clicking sharply against the polished concrete. She ran her hand along the edge of the sprawling, white marble kitchen island. "And she's really in London." "For the whole week," Marcus said, walking over to the custom wet bar. He pulled out a bottle of Macallan 25, a gift from my late father, and poured 2 generous glasses. "She's probably locked in a hotel room right now, staring at a screen, totally oblivious to the real world." As usual, I sat in my hotel room, my hands hovering over my mechanical keyboard, trembling so violently I could barely keep my fingers on the home row. My throat felt like it was lined with shattered glass. Chloe took the heavy crystal tumbler from him, taking a sip. "She built all this, like the tech stuff." Marcus laughed, a cruel, dismissive sound that I had never heard in the 4 years of our marriage. It was the sound of a man who held absolutely zero respect for the woman he had sworn his life to. "She paid a bunch of nerds to wire it up, I'm sure," Marcus scoffed, waving his hand dismissively. "She likes to pretend she's some kind of tech genius, but she's just a glorified typist. She's completely clueless, Chloe. I swear, she has the social awareness of a brick. She just lives in her little code bubbles." He walked over to her, wrapping his free arm around her waist and pulling her flush against him. "But her bank accounts? Those are very, very real." My vision blurred. I blinked hard, forcing the tears back. I reached for my coffee, taking a scalding sip to shock my system back into focus. "Observe the failure in real time," I reminded myself. "Gather the data." Chloe traced a manicured finger down Marcus's chest. "So, what's the actual timeline, Mark? Because I'm getting really tired of my tiny apartment, and you promised me we'd be looking at rings by Christmas." Marcus kissed her neck, right below her ear. "I told you, baby, we have to do this surgically. She's an earner, a massive earner. Her stock options vest in 90 days. Over the last 6 months, I've been quietly moving small chunks of our liquid assets into an offshore crypto wallet she doesn't know about. I'm leveraging her credit to secure the loan for the beach house in Cabo. Once the options vest, I initiate the transfer, drain the primary joint accounts, and hit her with the divorce papers. Will she fight for this house? Chloe asked, looking around greedily. She can try, Marcus sneered, taking a sip of the scotch. But my father's lawyers will tie her up in litigation for a decade. Will claim she's mentally unstable. I've already been laying the groundwork with our friends, telling them how erratic and paranoid she's been. By the time the dust settles, she'll be begging to settle just to pay her legal fees. This house will be ours. The sheer, breathtaking sociopathy of his words hung in the air. He wasn't just having a physical affair. He was executing a calculated, predatory extraction of my life. He was planning to ruin me financially, socially, and emotionally. He had been planning it for months. The sadness instantly evaporated, burned away by a sudden, terrifyingly cold inferno of absolute rage. The trembling in my hands stopped. My heart rate slowed to a calm, steady rhythm. The emotional woman who loved Marcus died in that hotel chair. The software architect took over. I cracked my knuckles. It was time to push a hotfix to the system. I opened a secure terminal window, the black screen filled with glowing green text. I bypassed the standard user interface and accessed Argus's root directory. Command, sudo/isolate environment sh. Parameters, target equals all exterior thresholds, action equals engage deadlocks, biometric override equals false. I hit enter. On the live feed, I saw the exact moment the command executed. A deep, heavy, metallic thunk echoed through the house as the 3-inch steel deadbolts engaged on the front door, the back patio doors, and the garage entry. Marcus frowned, pulling away from Chloe. What was that? What was what? Chloe asked, oblivious. Command, sudo/environmental control sh. Parameters, target equals privacy shades, action equals deploy all. I hit enter. The sleek, motorized blackout shades on every single one of the massive floor-to-ceiling windows simultaneously began to lower with a quiet, synchronized hum. The vibrant moonlight pouring into the living room was steadily eclipsed, plunging the house into a dim, artificial darkness. Marcus set his scotch glass down on the marble island, his brow furrowing in genuine confusion. He pulled his iPhone out of his pocket, opening the simplified consumer app I had built for him. Damn smart house is glitching, he muttered, tapping aggressively on the screen. The app is frozen. Command, sudo/network admin sh. Parameters, target equals Marcus phone MAC address, action equals revoke all privileges, status equals blacklisted. It's telling me I don't have administrative access, Marcus said, his voice ticking up half an octave into the realm of irritation. He walked over to the digital wall panel mounted near the kitchen. He tapped it. The screen remained pitch black. Mark, it's really dark in here, Chloe said, crossing her arms over her chest, suddenly looking very small in the massive, sealed room. Command, sudo/lighting control sh. Parameters, target equals main living area, color temp equals 6500K, intensity equals 100%. I hit enter. Every overhead LED in the living room and kitchen snapped on instantly at maximum brightness, bathing the room in a harsh, clinical, blindingly white light, akin to a surgical theater. Chloe shrieked, throwing her hands over her eyes. Marcus flinched hard, stumbling backward against the island. What the hell is going on? Marcus shouted, glaring up at the ceiling as if the house itself were mocking him. He marched over to the front door, grabbing the heavy steel handle and yanking downward. It didn't budge. He pulled harder, his biceps straining against the tailored fabric of his shirt. He slammed his palm against the biometric scanner. A red light flashed, and a robotic female voice, which I had synthesized myself, spoke from the foyer speakers. Access denied. Lockdown protocols engaged. Open the door, Marcus yelled at the scanner. He punched the heavy oak wood. Open the damn door, Argus. Command unrecognized. Lockdown protocols engaged. Panic, raw and unfiltered, finally began to bleed into his features. He spun around, looking at Chloe, who was now backing away toward the center of the room, her eyes wide with terror. Is this supposed to happen? She stammered, her voice shaking. Is it a burglar alarm? No, Marcus breathed, his eyes darting wildly around the room, landing on the subtle, dome-shaped security cameras mounted in the corners. No, this isn't an alarm, it's a manual override. He pulled out his phone again, dialing frantically. I watched the call attempt route through my localized server. I intercepted it and killed the connection before it ever reached the cellular tower. I don't have a signal, he panicked, holding the phone up in the air, spinning in a circle. How do I not have a signal? We're in the middle of the suburbs. I had activated the signal jammers built into the walls, a highly illegal feature I had installed purely for the theoretical challenge, never intending to actually use it. Until now. They were completely, utterly isolated, trapped inside a 4,000 square foot titanium and glass cage of my own design. Now, it was time to assemble the audience. I minimized the camera feeds and opened my email client. I drafted an urgent, high-priority meeting invite. To Richard redacted, Alina redacted, Vance redacted. Subject, urgent. Marcus medical emergency / house breach. Body, please join the secure Zoom link immediately. Marcus is in trouble at the house and I cannot reach emergency services from London. I need you to see the security feed. I sent the emails. I knew his parents. I knew his boss. They were obsessively tethered to their inboxes. A subject line like that would guarantee instantaneous clicks. I set up a private Zoom room on my second monitor. I didn't turn on my own camera or microphone. I simply waited as the host. Less than 60 seconds later, the chime sounded. Vance has entered the waiting room. Richard has entered the waiting room. Alina has entered the waiting room. I admitted them all simultaneously. 3 video feeds popped up. Vance was sitting in his plush home office, wearing a smoking jacket, looking alarmed but authoritative. Richard and Alina were together in their opulent den, Alina clutching the collar of her silk robe, Richard leaning closely into the webcam. Hello, Richard barked into his microphone. Who is this? Where is my son? What is happening? Is this a ransom situation? Vance demanded, his voice dropping to a dangerous corporate growl. I have my security team on standby. I didn't speak. Instead, I routed the video and audio feed from the living room camera directly into the Zoom call, broadcasting it to them via screen share. On their screens, they saw the pristine, brilliant white living room. They saw Marcus, their golden boy, their rising corporate star, pacing frantically like a trapped rat, his hair disheveled, his tie loosened. And they saw Chloe, sitting on the floor, weeping hysterically into her hands. What? What are we looking at? Alina gasped, leaning closer to the screen. Who is that woman? That isn't his wife. I wasn't done. I needed to bridge the gap. I needed Marcus to know exactly who was watching his execution. Command, sudo/av routing sh. Parameters, source equals Zoom audio video output, destination equals living room TV and speakers. I hit enter. In the living room, the massive, flush-mounted 85-inch OLED television suddenly flared to life. The high-fidelity surround sound system crackled. Marcus froze, whipping his head around to face the television. Chloe screamed and scrambled backward across the floor. Projected in towering, high-definition glory across the massive screen were the live webcam feeds of Marcus's father, his mother, and his CEO. Their faces, immense and confused, stared down into the living room. Marcus? Richard's voice boomed through the surround sound speakers, echoing off the concrete walls. Marcus, what the hell is going on here? Why are we looking at you on a security camera? Marcus went absolutely pale. The blood drained from his face so fast I thought he might actually pass out. His jaw fell slack. He stared up at the massive faces of the 3 people whose opinions dictated his entire existence. Dad, Marcus choked out, his voice a pathetic trembling squeak. Mom, Vance, how are you on the TV? What is this? Your wife sent us an emergency link, Vance said, his piercing eyes narrowing as he took in the scene. He looked at Marcus, then looked at Chloe, who was still sobbing on the floor in her cocktail dress. Vance was a shrewd man. The math was calculating behind his eyes. She said there was a breach. Who is that woman, Marcus? I, Marcus stuttered, backing away from the television, his hands raised defensively as if he could physically push the projection away. It's a misunderstanding. The system is hacked. Someone hacked the house. Hacked? Alina scoffed, her aristocratic voice dripping with sudden, venomous realization. Marcus, you are in your own home, with a half-dressed woman. while your wife is in London. No, Mom, listen to me, Marcus pleaded, walking toward the TV, his hands clasped together in desperate supplication. This is a setup. She set me up. I finally engaged my microphone, routing my audio directly into the Zoom call, which in turn broadcasted out through the living room speakers. I used a voice modulator to strip the emotion from my voice, making it sound cold, robotic, and absolute. He is correct. My voice echoed through the house, sounding like an angry deity speaking from the ceiling. It is a setup. But I didn't hack the house, Marcus. I am the house. Marcus spun around, staring up at the corner camera, absolute terror vibrating through his frame. Please, he whispered. Please turn it off. Turn it off, I'll do anything. Please. Hello, Richard, Eleanor, Vance, I said calmly, addressing the massive faces on the television. I apologize for the late hour. I wanted you to see the real Marcus, not the VP, not the dutiful son. The man who brings his mistress into the home I built, drinks the scotch my dead father gave me, and details his plan to steal my assets and ruin my reputation. This is outrageous, Richard bellowed, his face turning an alarming shade of purple. You cannot hold my son hostage in his own home. I am calling the police. You can certainly try, Richard, I replied smoothly. But I highly recommend you listen to this audio file first. I wouldn't want Marcus's brilliant corporate career, or your family's immaculate social, standing to be tarnished by what the police might find in the public record. Command, sudo/playback audio sh. Parameters. File equals betrayal clip 1, WAV. The surround sound system flawlessly played back the crisp, high-definition recording from just 10 minutes prior. Marcus's voice, she's completely clueless, Chloe. I swear, she has the social awareness of a brick. She just lives in her little code bubbles. Chloe's voice, but her bank accounts, those are very, very real. Marcus's voice. I've been quietly moving small chunks of our liquid assets into an offshore crypto wallet. Once the options vest, I initiate the transfer, drain the primary joint accounts, and hit her with the divorce papers. My father's lawyers will tie her up in litigation for a decade, will claim she's mentally unstable. The audio stopped. The silence that followed was absolute, suffocating, and magnificent. On the Zoom feed, Eleanor had covered her mouth with her hands, looking at her son with an expression of pure, unadulterated disgust. Richard was staring at the camera, completely speechless, the bluster knocked out of him. But Vance was the most terrifying. The CEO's face had hardened into a mask of cold, corporate execution. Embezzlement, asset hiding, premeditated fraud, and plotting to weaponize the legal system against your spouse, Vance listed off calmly, ticking them off on his fingers. He looked down at Marcus, who was now weeping, actually weeping, on his knees in the middle of the living room. Marcus, we run a logistics firm that manages billions of dollars in government contracts. Integrity is our only currency. Vance, please, Marcus sobbed, reaching out toward the television screen. It was just talk. It was just stupid talk. I wasn't going to do it. You're fired, Marcus, Vance said, his voice completely devoid of emotion. Do not come to the office. Your access badge has already been deactivated. My legal team will be auditing every single one of your accounts by morning to ensure you haven't tried this offshore crypto strategy with company funds. Vance didn't wait for a reply. He disconnected. His feed vanished from the television, replaced by a black square. Marcus let out a guttural scream, slamming his fists against the concrete floor. He looked up at his parents' remaining video feeds. Dad. Mom. You fool, Richard spat, his voice trembling with rage. You arrogant, stupid boy, you plan to use my lawyers. You plan to drag our name into a fraudulent divorce proceeding. We are done here, Eleanor said icily. Do not call us. Their feeds vanished. The television went entirely black. Marcus was alone again, trapped in the brilliant, blinding light of the living room with his terrified mistress. He slowly pushed himself off the floor, his tailored shirt ruined by sweat and tears. He looked up at the camera, his eyes red and swollen. You ruined me, he whispered hoarsely to the lens. You took everything. I sat in the quiet of my hotel room. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a deep, exhausting cold. But I had one final script to run. I opened my secure banking dashboard. I had spent the last 3 days rewriting the API integrations for our joint accounts, bypassing the standard two-factor authentication by spoofing our shared MAC addresses. I executed the financial scripts. On Marcus's phone, which was lying on the kitchen island, a flurry of notifications suddenly lit up the screen. He lunged for it, his hands shaking as he read the text messages from our banks. Alert. Joint CHECKING account balance has been transferred to external holding account. Alert. Joint savings account balance has been transferred to external holding account. Alert. Brokerage account access has been revoked for user. MARCUS. No, Marcus gasped, dropping the phone. No, 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 you can't do this, that's my money too. You severely underestimated the glorified typist, Marcus. My modulated voice echoed softly through the room. The assets have been moved to a secure escrow account pending legal separation. I have also forwarded the audio files, the video feeds, and the logs of your crypto transfers to my attorney. He is a very aggressive man. He will be contacting you in the morning. Please, Marcus begged, sinking to his knees again, tears streaming down his face, his hands pressed together in prayer toward the camera lens. Please, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I love you. It was a mistake, she means nothing to me, please don't leave me locked in here, please. Chloe let out a sound of pure disgust, finally standing up and walking away from him, retreating into the far corner of the room, distancing herself from the pathetic shell of the man she had arrived with. Argus, I spoke into my microphone, addressing the system directly. Awaiting command, the house responded, the synthetic voice filling the space. Initiate deep sleep mode. Kill all interior lighting. Maintain exterior deadlocks. Disengage environmental controls. Executing deep sleep mode. The blinding white lights snapped off, plunging the house into absolute pitch-black darkness. The hum of the HVAC system spun down into silence. Through the night vision feed, I watched Marcus flail in the darkness, screaming my name, screaming at the house, screaming at the walls that he had foolishly believed belonged to him. I closed the video feed. I terminated the VPN tunnel. I shut down my laptop, closed the lid, and let out a long, slow breath into the quiet hotel room. The bug had been successfully isolated. The corrupted data had been purged from the system. Tomorrow, I would rebuild the architecture of my life, but for tonight, the code had executed flawlessly. Goodbye, Marcus.